Last Sunday afternoon, I was sitting beside a creek. It was one of those quiet summer days where everything seems calm. The water moved steadily over the rocks. The trees barely moved. People walked past without much urgency. And for a few minutes, I found myself just watching the water. Not thinking about work, not thinking about responsibilities, just watching. Then a strange thought entered my mind. The creek didn't care that it was Sunday. It didn't care about my plans for next week. It didn't care about my expectations. The water simply continued moving. And somehow, that led me to another question. Why do so many people seem disappointed with life? Not just frustrated, not just stressed, disappointed. There seems to be a quiet bitterness that hangs over a lot of people today. A feeling that something was supposed to happen, but never did. A feeling that life somehow failed to keep its promises. And if I'm being honest, I've felt it too. Over the last few years, I've watched people become increasingly angry, anxious, and divided. Everywhere I look, someone is blaming something. The government, the economy, corporations, social media, their employer, their family, their partner, their circumstances. And while some of those criticisms may be justified, I couldn't help but wonder if something deeper was happening beneath the surface. Because the more I observed, the more I noticed a pattern. People weren't only upset by events, they were upset because reality wasn't behaving the way they expected it to. That realization stayed with me. Why do expectations seem to hurt us so much? Where do they even come from? When we're young, we're given a story about how life works. Study hard, work hard, be a good person, follow the rules, stay out of trouble. Eventually, things will fall into place. Maybe not perfectly, but reasonably, predictably, fairly. At least that's the story many of us absorb. Not necessarily from one person, but from culture, movies, schools, advertisements, social media, the conversations happening all around us. Over time, those stories become assumptions, and assumptions become expectations. The problem is that reality never agreed to those terms. No contract was signed. No guarantees were made. Yet many of us live as though they were. Maybe that's why so many people feel betrayed. Looking back, I don't think most people are suffering because life contains struggle. Human beings have always faced struggle. Our ancestors faced war, disease, uncertainty, famine, and hardship long before any of us arrived. Struggle isn't new. What feels new is the expectation that struggle shouldn't exist. The expectation that life should be comfortable, predictable, safe, manageable. That progress should move in a straight line. That hard work should always produce the desired result. That good intentions should always be rewarded. That fairness should somehow be guaranteed. And when reality inevitably breaks those expectations, many people experience something deeper than disappointment. They experience betrayal. Not betrayal by a person, betrayal by an idea, by a narrative, by a promise they never realized they had accepted. Somewhere along the way, many of us inherited the belief that if we planned carefully enough, worked hard enough, and made the right decisions, uncertainty would eventually disappear. But uncertainty never left. It was simply hidden. And perhaps that's where the aquarium comes in. An aquarium is a controlled environment. The water is filtered, the temperature is regulated, food arrives on schedule, threats are removed. The environment is designed around comfort and predictability. The fish inside the aquarium begins to assume that this is simply how the world works. Why wouldn't it? It has never experienced anything else. Then, one day, imagine that fish being released into a river. The current is unpredictable. The water conditions change. Food isn't guaranteed. Predators exist. Competition exists. The environment doesn't care about the fish's expectations. Suddenly, the fish feels overwhelmed. Not because the river is broken, but because the river doesn't resemble the world it thought existed. Sometimes I wonder if many of us are living through a similar experience. Not because society is collapsing, not because the world suddenly became dangerous, but because reality is reminding us of something it has always been. Uncertain, competitive, impermanent, beyond our control. And maybe the discomfort we feel isn't caused by reality itself. Maybe it's caused by the gap between reality and the stories we were told about it. Maybe we've spent so much time trying to perfect the aquarium that we've forgotten we were always living beside a river. And if that's true, then perhaps the real question isn't, why is the river behaving this way? Perhaps the real question is, why was I expecting it to behave differently? That question changed the way I see almost everything. Because once you realize you're standing beside a river, you stop demanding certainty. You stop demanding guarantees. You stop demanding that reality conform to your preferences. And instead, you begin to ask a different question. How do I learn to swim? That is where this journey begins.